All right, fellas. Yeah, I asked for it, so here it is. This is officially my first YouTube video on my channel with Fishing with Ray. Starting off today, this is the first video. I started uploading some stuff on my Snapchat, but from moving forward, this is where I'm going to upload my content. So officially, I'm going to touch a few topics in this video. I'm going to start off telling you guys the top 5 baits I'm going to use for the month of May, and then why. And I also got my rods in the background specifically to show you guys why I'm using on certain rods, certain line, poundage, everything. So I'm gonna give you the whole rundown for everything you need to know. And also I'll tell you a little bit of how I like to fish in general, and then I'll ask you guys how you like to fish. So let's get started. First bait for the month of May is a chatterbait. A chatterbait is a must-have in your box, really from spring through fall. I mean, it's one of the baits that you can throw through every season because it can be fished multiple ways. You can fish it faster, slower, and it just moves so much water. This is a white. White's probably one of my favorite colors. For every bait you have in your box, me personally, I'm going to have at least 2 colors of it. One lighter color that looks more of a natural style bait when the water is clear, and one darker color bait like a blue with fleck, or even just solid black, just for when the water is dirty and it's harder for the fish to see it, so it'll stand out better. But chatterbait is the first bait I'm going to use for the month of May, specifically because it's a moving bait as well too. So that's kind of how I categorize my baits when I fish. I like to start off with a fast-paced bait that's moving, and then I'll slow down from there, because who wants to start off fishing slow? So you might as well start fishing fast, and you can do that with chatterbait. Next bait that we got is, oh, it's right here. The jerk bait. Oh, and I apologize, I forgot to tell you. So for the chatterbait specifically, I'm going to throw this on a 7-foot, at least medium, but me personally, I like to use medium heavy, just so I can have a little bit more backbone when you hang into some bigger fish, and it's not as sensitive because this motherfucker vibrates. So next bait is the jerk bait. The jerk bait is definitely a must-have bait. A lot of people like to use it, you know, preferably in the springtime when the water is colder, as a reaction bait. But I think personally that you can still use it when the water warms up. You just have to fish it a little bit different. I noticed when I picked the speed up of the bait during months like May, June, and in summertime, it actually works pretty well still. A lot of people like to fish it slow, but sometimes if you fish it faster, you can still get bites. And I feel like a lot of times the fish don't see it as much in those months, so it kind of works. That's how I like to think about it. It's like sometimes I like to go for baits that I think they might not have seen a lot of. So this is another bait, the jerk bait, I'll use for the month of May. And specifically, I'll use this on a lighter rod, so I'll use it on this one back here. I'm not sure if you can see it, so you guys can see this. This is a 7-foot medium rod bait caster, and I'd only use like 12-pound test on it. You don't want to use a really heavy line on jerk baits because you want it to be sensitive so you can get that perfect action out of it. So jerk bait is the number 2 bait for the month of May. Okay, third bait. A lot of people that know me already know that this bait was going to be in here. The jig. My favorite bait of all time. I can honestly say that I've caught pretty much all of my biggest fish on a jig. It's just something about a jig that just gets bigger bites. I think it's the presentation of it. It's a bigger size bait in the water, but it can also be fished in so many different ways. You can fish it down deep. You can fish it as a swim bait. You can fish it in cover. Like, it's one of the most versatile baits that you can really possibly use. So jig, specifically for me, I like football jigs because I think football jigs come in and out of cover pretty good for the most part. And I like that the eye is in the middle, so the jig can sit perfectly in line, symmetrical. So once you really get into it good, you'll want to work on those details like that for all your baits, really. So, and the jig can be used on anything from a medium heavy, but me personally, a lot of times I do throw a bigger rod when I'm throwing my jigs and my top water. So I got this rod right here. This is, well, this is honestly my baby. I ain't gonna lie to you guys. This is my Abu Garcia rod, 7'6" extra heavy. So I mean, she's a tank. I mean, I've flipped 7-pounders in with this rod, 7-8-pounders easy. And I got the speed spool 8 3-to-1. So yeah, this is the rod I use when I'm ready to catch them, to catch the big ones. So jig was number 3. And now let's go to number 4. You know I gotta throw in a top water, but I'm gonna throw in a surprising one, I feel like, for most people. The popper. I'm gonna say the popper for the month of May, because I feel like the popper is kind of an underrated bait in the sense of it doesn't get used a lot like it used to, because there's so many different options out now, like the whopper plopper, spooks, walking baits, all type of baits. So I feel like the plopper can still catch a lot of fish because it's something that's not seen a lot, and it's something that can be used when the water is calm. A lot of these baits, like whopper ploppers, walking baits, or baits, top water baits that make a lot of noise, like buzz baits, they're not the best for calm water because it's somewhat almost too noisy and it might scare the fish away. So that's a lot of times why you see people using it in choppy water where it's more noise, and then it won't be as bad and it still will give you that loud action. But on calm days when you want to fish top water, I'm going to say the popper is another one that's very underrated. And I would say specifically for the rod, I would throw this on anywhere from a 7-foot medium all the way up to 7'6" extra heavy if you wanted to, honestly. Just depends on how you really want to fish it or what you have to work with. But popper is very versatile and it catches fish. And big ones. And my last baits, you already know. People that know me will already know. The worm. The worm. The worm is just an all-time classic. It will always be a great bait. It will always be an all-time bait. It's open for you guys. Just the way it's just a natural presentation, especially on those dog days of summer when the fish aren't really biting good. Something natural like this. It's a long curly tail that you can just let flow through the water and you can lift it up slowly. It's always a go-to, man. When time is tough, you put on either a curly tail or you can put on a Cinco. Cinco is hard to beat as well. Those are probably the 2 best worms in my opinion. And also, this is another one of my favorite colors, is the red bug. And it's kind of like red with green flecks, so it gives off a good color. And then for the worm, you can fish really the worm on any rod, even a spinning rod if you would want to. Specifically, you didn't really hear me list off a lot of spinning rod baits just because I use spinning rods, but it's not my main rods I use, or reels, or spinning reels. I mainly like bait casters. I do, you know, fish finesse, obviously, sometimes when you have to catch them, but I'd rather, honestly, power fish. That's me personally, so yeah, those are the 5 baits that I'm going to use for the month of May specifically. The chatterbait, the jig, jerk bait, worms, and the popper. So that's what I think is the best for the month of May specifically. And I'll also be doing these for each month of the year. So if you guys want me to keep doing these, just let me know. And then also I'd like to ask you guys, what are the top baits you're going to use for the month of May? You can leave that down in the comment section and we can all have a conversation about that. That'd probably be pretty interesting. But appreciate you guys for tuning in, and just continue to look for videos in the future. Peace.